Well, hello to everybody. We have a very exciting session about to come up now. A word or two of introduction. I'm Julian Boulding. I'm the founder and president of the Network One, which is the world's largest independent agencies network. And I'm very privileged today to be able to talk to Deepika Warrier, who is one of our heroes as the Chief Marketing Officer for one of the top, not just the top companies in India, but also one of the top British companies in India. So, ideal guest for us to have here in the UK House, talking today about the characteristics and challenges and opportunities of the Indian market. Deepika, just a word of introduction. Career with PepsiCo in India for several years and rose to be Chief Marketing Officer of Pepsi in India. She's also in Dubai, so she knows a little bit about what it's like to live in different countries and things as well. But now, and for the last few years, she is CMO, Chief Marketing Officer of Diageo in India. And I imagine that is quite a challenging, Deepika, but a very big welcome and a warm welcome today.
Thank you, Julian. Thank you so much for having me.
So, great, you're welcome. So if we start off, I mean, we've got an audience of whom many are British people, obviously with an interest in India. Some will be people who've worked in India or traveled to India. Some will be people who are thinking of entering the Indian market and haven't yet done so. Do you have for a British person or a person from Europe or the West that hasn't been to India before? What is the biggest mistake you could make and things that you might want to look out for?
Okay, so there's so it's interesting. So you know, a there's there'll be a sense of familiarity because a lot of Indians, particularly the people that you deal with, speak English, and so therefore it won't feel strange to begin with. But then, as you start, maybe if it's a business meeting or you start working in India, then some of the differences might crop up. So, and let me tell you, I mean, there is no one India, and I don't want to stereotype India as well, but there are some faults and foibles, which of course, and there's a reason why the stereotype exists. So we're not absolutely famous for our punctuality, unlike I think the British Railways, which I've heard so much about. So you might find, I think Zoom is making life, or virtual meetings is making us far more punctual. But if it's a physical meeting, maybe because of the traffic and the way our roads are, you might find people not exactly on time. Do we try to do so, but there could be a little delay in meeting startup time. So don't be impatient. When you're socializing in India, you might find that people end up having dinner very late. And I know that I think folks from the UK tend to eat early dinner, and here you might find yourself nursing your drink, and dinners might go on as late as 9 p.m. or even later. So do have a snack before you go out for a social dinner with a potential partner or someone that you're trying to maybe hire in India. The other thing, Julian, you and I were talking about it before the camera went off. Some of the verbal and the non-verbal mannerisms might be slightly difficult to decode. So, Julian, to the audience, when he was talking to me, I was vigorously nodding my head and shaking my head, and he wasn't quite sure whether I was saying yes, maybe, or no. So, some of our non-verbal gestures might take a little time to comprehend. The last is, I don't know whether I really exemplify India, but I tend to speak very fast. So we Indians tend to speak very fast. We're not as deliberate in our speech. Maybe it comes from our own language, which is far more. It's a very fluid kind of language. So I think in your mind punctuate for us, and and maybe just tell us to slow down a bit so that we can. Just joking, but otherwise I think the biggest advantage of doing business with India and with Indians is the fluency with English, and the fact that there's a lot of familiarity and fondness for Britain. So I think for the UK, so I think it should be fairly easy.
I know I've often tended to slip into the belief that India actually speaks English as a main language, but of course that's not entirely true, is it? And if for a company or brand that's entering the Indian market, often I'm asked, people don't really know, is it okay to simply put my communication in English, or should it be English and Hindi, or what about all of the languages? What guidance would you give to somebody with a consumer brand like some of yours entering the Indian market in terms of language and cultural understanding?
Sure, sure. So, great point, and I think uh, clearly, diversity is I think the key word when you come into India. So, you've heard about it: 28 states, 22 languages. I think on the average, if you and I don't even want to mention the dialects. So clearly, there are very strong regional nuances. English is a unifier at the top end. So if you're coming in with the premium product or service, then it's very likely that you should get away with using English. But if not, and if it's a more mainstream kind of product or a mass product, then definitely, nuancing it using local languages in your content, whether it's Hindi. But remember, Hindi also doesn't work in the south, east, and the west of the country. It works well in the north of the country and some parts of the west. So there are also the regional languages of the south and the east, which are very different from Hindi. So yes, I think it's very important when you come into India. We often say in India, it's actually the state is equal to a country. So our 22 states, each one of them would be the size of a small country in Europe. So I think it's important to think of India almost as a semi-continent, and coming in and be very aware of the regional nuances. However, there are many things that bind. It's important also not to get kind of bewildered or kind of put off by the complexity or the diversity, because there is a lot of unifying threads as well. So some unifying threads that I can talk about is cricket, invented in Britain, but I think we believe it's our sport now. We definitely define the economics of cricket for sure globally. Bollywood, great, or I would say a cinema, great unifier. Content. Indians love content. Audiovisual content, both regional as well as Hindi. I would say family, the importance of family, is something that really unifies, India. Importance of family values. Um, and if you ask me, for someone who's trying to, a brand that's trying to enter India, I think what you'd love about India is there's this palpable sense of energy and growth. And it is one of the fastest growing economies in the world. And you can feel it because it's an economy that's driven by consumption. So, that large mass of population, we've got approximately, I think, 17% of the world's population lives here. Our median age is 28, so which means that 65% of people of our population, Julian, is below 30 years of age. So, when you come here, what you realize is the youthful energy is what you really experience. Whether you're in the streets or when you're just trying to understand consumption behavior. And we often say that even if you're targeting older consumers, let's say you're targeting a 35 to 45-year-old consumer, youth is very aspirational. Even our older consumers think, like aspire to be young in their mind. So I think, that to me is a big connector. I would say some of the other things which could be enablers actually for a brand that's coming into India now is the rapid digitization that you're seeing in India. So mobile phone ownership is now up to 67%, and actually a lot of people have more than mobile phones. So actually the number of mobile phones will be equal to our population. The internet penetration is now almost 50% of the country has access to the internet. Social media penetration up to 35%. So I think a lot of the new media outreach is now coming into India as well. So here you have, so I think I just summarize it as the positives would be a young, consumption driven, high energy market, which is rapidly digitizing, adopting the internet. But on the other hand, I think what you need to watch out for is the fact that there is a complexity which comes from diversity, as you said, from multiple religions, some cultural differences, particularly when it comes to food and beverages across our various states. So there's the good and the bad, I guess.
No, absolutely, and I'm totally with you with the energy. It's absolutely infectious when you come to India. It's wonderful. But let me pick you up on the media question a bit, because you mentioned a bit about the different media channels. And if we go back a few years, I guess like most places, television was a kind of a big unifier. Now the world goes online. I remember India went through a phase of phone messages sent by missed calls because you
Yes.
could communicate.
Yeah, we don't do that so much anymore because I think the cost of broadband and the cost of a call has come down significantly. So I think the missed calls and the SMSs are not as prevalent, though they're still very important. But you're right. I think there's been a change, Julian, in terms of media habits. So television is still, I would say, the largest medium, particularly if you're looking at a mainstream, let's say a CPG product. It still makes sense to do television a big way. But if you were to pull back and take a look at where our, let's say, our advertising monies are being spent, then television would still be the largest. I'd say about 40% of advertising rupees in India would be spent on television. But digital is catching up rapidly, So I would say, when I think of our media budgets or what my media agency shared with me recently, the digital would be right up there at almost 30 to 31%. Print is another way that there's still that you can still reach, is a large reach driver. So print, I'd say, would be in the 20s. And then you've got, of course, the other media, radio, which is relatively small. You've got out of home and so on and so forth. But what's interesting is also new ways of reaching out to consumers. So one of the interesting things is audio streaming has really gone through the roof. So if you look at, let's say, Indians love their music. So there's Bollywood music, there's indie music, which is really regional music, and I think the last count they've almost 35. But sorry, 300 million, and in numbers in India always in the large millions, hundreds of millions, of course. So, but about 350 million audio streaming users in India. It's a crazy number. Or if you think about it, so that's one interesting way that you'd want to reach, audiences versus going television. Another example that I can tell you is gaming. So gaming, I think we've got one of the largest gaming audiences in the country. And I think the last count was about 500 million gamers. And it's not just the youth. Actually, you're also seeing women, and you're seeing older males also, gaming on their mobiles a lot. So another interesting way to reach. So, but I think pretty much if you look at how you would reach out to consumers today, in addition to, let's say, doing your large mental availability, and if you want to drive reach through the larger media, but increasingly, like very much anywhere else in the world, it's really about, how do you drive highly personalized outreach? Let's say, using social media, or digital, or how do you tap into passion points? I mentioned some of the big passion points, which are cricket, Bollywood, etc. But increasingly, micro influencers are also becoming important. The third thing that I'd say is purpose-driven marketing or cause-driven marketing is also becoming very, very important in India, because particularly post the pandemic, the importance of the community, has become very, very important. And Julian, I'd love us to take a pause, and I'd love to share with you, I think, some content that we've created on Johnny Walker, which of course is Diageo's crown jewel brand, and is doing extremely well in India. And the example that I'm going to share with you is actually 3 pieces of content that we've spliced together. And when you see it, you'll realize it's not about a television spot anymore. The 3 pieces of content that I'm going to show you are actually acts where we've used the content to capture of an act that we created with consumers. In one case, it was about getting consumers to travel around India, experience, the various, unexplored parts of India, and then translate them into interesting serves using the Johnny Walker liquid. The second example is one where during the pandemic, we actually got consumers, when the pandemic was getting over and we were coming out of the quarantine, we actually got consumers to walk into their favorite neighborhood bars, trying to revive that economy with their, their they use bottle of Johnny Walker because they'd been drinking it home, and to bring back the bottle, and then how we use the bottles to create installation art. And the last piece is, now that we've, over with almost the third wave of COVID, we're kind of reviving thereafter us. So it's really about acts, which we then, use it to create content, which we, of course, then do a 1990 with. So if you could just pause and take a look at the 3 pieces of content, I think it'll tell the story better.
Great.
worst that could possibly happen.
Our job during the lockdown period was really a very, very difficult time.
Is one of the most severely hit industries.
When bars finally reopened, we decided to help our partners get back on their feet. Walk in with Johnny. An activation that turned uncertainty of yesterday into symbols of hope for tomorrow. Digital videos asked people to return to their favorite bars carrying the glass bottles they emptied during the lockdown. A microsite, thumbstopper, and influencers led them to our collection booths across 10 major cities. And what did we do with over 50,000 glass bottles? We took them to 3 of India's leading glass artists and asked them to turn those bottles into artworks with a message.
So it's a journey through dark times, but you always see the light towards the end.
A message to leave the past behind and walk into the future. The installations went back to the bars where the bottles were collected. And all contributors got their names on them. A digital film closed the campaign, reminding us that standing still is not an option. So, did people walk in?
Wow, thank you. I mean, that's an impressive piece of multifaceted work. How long did it take you to bring that together?
So the three were done at three different pieces of time. But yeah, I mean, I must tell you, for the last two, the Walk In with Johnny and the Revive, we actually did it in the midst of the pandemics. It was a heroic effort, whether it was our
Wow.
agency teams, our production teams, to mount this, with all the restrictions and, absolutely following all the laws of the land and all the precautions when it came to social distancing, to really, both mount the acts as well as create the content. So yeah, I mean, I would say over the last 18 months, I would say these three particular campaigns have really, given us a lot of brand love for the brand Johnny Walker.
I mean, it's fascinating for me as a Brit to see an icon really that we've grown up with as being, a very British kind of symbol, but really taken that. I mean, did you have difficulty with the senior people back in the UK about, this is our trademark, this is our we have to be much more respectful or careful with it, or did they embrace that? Did you have a easy time or a hard time to get that accepted?
No, it's a global brand, so you do have to be careful. And I think for Johnny Walker, I mean, and for global brands, what's important is your tone of voice, or the purpose of the brand needs to remain the same. So if Johnny Walker stands for progress, and we always say it's progress in the pursuit of a richer life, and that's as true for Indians today as it is for anywhere, folks anywhere in the world, whether it's in the United Kingdom or the US or anywhere else. So I think we were very true to the higher purpose that the brand stood for and the tone of voice. But having said that, I mean, brands like Johnny Walker, and I think what the interesting thing about India is, Indians love brands, so there's still a lot of trust in brands, which is I think on the decline in some of the more developed markets. And brands like Johnny Walker are iconic. So Indians know them. I don't know whether you know this, but we had a comedian in Bollywood in the 40s and the 50s who was actually he named himself Johnny Walker. So
Really?
after the brand, yeah. So it's actually a very iconic brand, and so to that extent, while Indians know that it's a brand that comes from the UK, they almost love it. They really look up to it as a very iconic brand. So so I think you do need to take, and coming into India, you do need to take a global approach. Take a global brand, stay true to what it stands for, but then as you just saw in this example, adapt it to a cultural passion or a cultural context which is very unique to the country, to India. I think that balance
Yes,
is
I mean,
very important to strike.
yeah, no, I mean, I think it's a very fair point that Johnny Walker is really a global brand. But of course, there are people who are watching us now who've got brands which are British and are not so well known in India necessarily. I mean, please be honest, don't be polite. But what is the image of the UK or England or Scotland like in India? Is it still positive? Thank you for the cricket. Is it still negative? Is it? How do you see us?
So let me talk about it from a commerce and a brand point of view. I don't want to get into history and politics, but
No. I
yeah.
didn't.
Speaking of cricket, I must tell you the attitude is more about okay, you gave us the game, but we now own it and we want to excel in it, and we still love to beat the English at Lords. I think that's always a dream for any Indian cricketer. So that's so much for cricket. But I'll tell you, I think modern day UK. So first of all, let's pull back. The fact that I'm speaking to you in English. So much of what we take for granted in our daily life for people like me, and I would say I'm the top 1%, 2% of the population. The books that we've grown up reading, even the way we eat, sometimes the way we dress, a lot of it has some amount of a hangover, particularly the language. I would say, from the time when, of course, when the British were in India. But more recently, I'd say, some things that I would say, UK or the British brand stand for in India. It's interesting for me. I mean, and I'm speaking of this personally. I think integrity is a word that I'd use very strongly. And I think there's a brand that stands for it. It's the BBC. I remember the BBC World Service was a great source of news and authentic, accurate news, at a time where we didn't know. This is, of course, pre-internet days, when we didn't know, where to trust our sources. And where in India, we just had one source of information, which was a government channel. So I think brands like the BBC stand for integrity. I think clearly, the UK stands for very high quality. So, and I think if I think of some of the brands which epitomize that, Marks and Spencer, for example, has become a very popular brand in India, and it stands for great quality at, I would say not that doesn't kind of put you out of pocket completely. Of course, very premium brands like Burberry. Dyson has become very popular more recently. I don't know whether anyone's watching from the company, but in this, during COVID, the air purifier, some of the cleaning appliances became, it really stands for very high quality. Consultancy firms, service providers, banks, Barclays, HSBC. So I think really stands for high integrity, high quality service and products. Heritage. So, of course, I work for a company which stands for the ultimate in heritage, Scotch whiskey. And even today, when we talk about taking our consumers to the Johnny Walker home in Brand Home in Princess Street, or to a distillery visit, there's lots of goosebumps, and people still relate to heritage. And not just, I would say, Scotch whiskey is, of course, representative of it, but I think tourism. People would still, London's still one of the most sought after, or Scotland, very sought after destinations from a tourism point of view. And I think people are just waiting for the, pandemic-led travel restrictions to ease when they can start traveling again. Education. I would say if you were to go to the smallest of towns in India, Julian, you'll find institutions which are trying to teach English, because English, like it or not, whether we like it or not, is still seen as almost a portkey to economic success, and unfortunately even social standing, which is unfortunate, but that's the way it is. I mean, that's unfortunately the way society is in India. But I'd say, if I were to just pull back, it would stand for integrity, high quality, humor, the British sense of humor, of course, great content. I think whether it's music, I mean, we all grew up on the Beatles and the Who and Rolling Stones, but more recently Floyd. But more recently, I think Downton Abbey. You look at some of the new content that's coming our way again. So I would say it's a very positive, more progressive image of the UK now in India, particularly in the brands, I'd say.
No, I mean that's nice to hear. I'm sure the UK government would be very pleased to hear, because we've done a lot of work to talk about the image of Great Britain and
Yes.
cultural leadership and properties and things like that. So that's really encouraging. Thank you so much for all of that. I just want to finish, if I may, on one question, which is not specifically related to UK and India, but is related to your role as a CMO or Chief Marketing Officer. And we asked this in many of these UK houses. How do you see the role of a CMO today? Is it changing? Is it developing? Do you need new and different skills? How do you see your own role?
Yeah, definitely. I would say, uh, I mean, there's the good and the bad. The good is I think there was a period in the middle. I'll be very honest with you, where and this maybe was in the I can't put my finger on the exact time, but I would say the early 2000s, etc., where there was a lot of questioning of the role of marketing, the role of the CMO. But I honestly think we're in the golden age of marketing, and I'll tell you why. I think now more than ever, and getting into the future, given rapidly changing consumer behavior, all the uncertainty that we're facing in the last 2 years have been, we've seen a bewildered consumer, and so much change when it comes to macros, etc. So I think the role of a CMO in terms of representing the voice of the consumer, on the one hand within the company, but also I think owning the consumer experience end to end, is becoming increasingly critical. So I'll give you my example. For example, my example. I would say that that's the way the Diageo defines the CMO's role as well. Our role is to not just, to ensure that the brand ownership or brand building is not restricted only to the marketing team, but actually runs across the organization. So whether if I'm someone in supply or someone looking after quality, how do I ensure that I'm giving a great consumer experience, customer experience end to end? So I think owning the consumer, the customer experience also sits, with the CMO. The second thing is, I think increasingly CMOs are being challenged. I need to do this, and it's also the fun part of the job, to really pull back and take a look at the whole the structure and the capability of the team. So particularly in India, Julian, I must tell you, we've been quite conventional with the way marketing teams have been constructed. So most folks are MBAs, with a strong analytical background. But I think increasingly, the importance of breaking silos, driving huge amount of collaboration across functions, relooking at the skill sets that you need within marketing, because you do need a mix of course, you need the, strategic thinking, the brand building capabilities, the toolkits, but you also need a lot of creativity, combined with precision. You need great storytelling. You need, strong digital forward skills, which some of the more traditional marketers don't have. You need design thinking. So I think, really examining the structure and the capability of the marketing team is something that the CMO needs to be constantly, interrogating and looking at. Similarly, I would say the same applies to the agency teams, so looking at agency capability, looking at also your agency ecosystem in terms of what are the capabilities that you need there, is also important. That's of course the extended marketing team. Also what's happening is, I think most CMOs are also driving digital transformation, not the end-to-end seamless organization digitization, but I think increasingly most organizations are looking at digital transformation from a very consumer forward kind of way. And I think that's the role of the CMO in terms of, what are the right technologies that we need to choose to adopt to ensure that, we're getting all the data, the rich data that we need, and including ensuring we have enough first party data, and work around all the privacy restrictions that are there and are coming up even more, and also of course so that's of course the whole analytics and the precision part of it. But the second thing is technology, again, to come back and drive customer experience. And the couple of other things that I would say is, again, needs, as always, I think the CMO needs to be the future back thinker. So for example, at Diageo, we try and say, where's the consumer going to be not in 2023 or 24, but where's the consumer going to be in 2030, and what do we need to do today to ensure that we are ready for that consumer? And the last I'd say is, increasingly, given the world post the pandemic, and even all that we're seeing around us from an environmental sustainability point of view and the growing importance of ESG, I think the role of the CMO becomes, across the whole organization, to embed purpose at the heart of everything that we do in our brand building and beyond. So I would say never more than before. I mean, maybe I'm just ensuring my job is secure, but but I must say, the role of the CMO is more relevant than ever. It's just that I think, you need to be very agile. You need to have the ability to deal with ambiguity. You need to be extremely collaborative. The ability to balance, looking at the short term. It could for the quarter versus really the long term or future back. So, it requires a very different skill sets, but, very relevant and more than ever, I would say.
Wow, thank you. I mean, that's terrific, Deepika. Thank you so much for this. I would love to talk to you for an hour. We don't have that time, but I think we got about an hour's worth of content into a lot less time. You promised us at the beginning optimism, energy as characteristics of India, but definitely we've heard that today. Thank you very much. I hope, and I'm sure everybody is as inspired as I've been to listen to you. Thank you for sharing with us today.
Thank you, Julian. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you.